part of the Israeli law. So that's a total irony. Here in the Jewish state, Jaffer has more religious freedom than I as a Reform rabbi.
You can choose. You can choose between churches.
That's right. You can. You can't choose between synagogues, though, and that's the answer, and that in part is the good news in response to your question. Things are already changing. In part they're changing because we've been able to change them through the courts. And I think that definitely a good word has to be mentioned with regard to the work of the New Israel Fund that has been supporting the struggle for religious pluralism and has been clearly standing with the move to realize the values and the principles of the Declaration of Independence. So we have the Supreme Court ordering the state to recognize for civil purposes Reform and conservative conversions performed overseas, and now Reform and conservative conversions performed in Israel.
That's a major change.
It is a major achievement that wasn't there only not too many years ago. Indeed, the struggle today is to gain Jews by choice from non-Orthodox circles the right to marry in Israel. We, only a week ago, have dedicated a synagogue at the Yozma congregation of the Reform movement in Israel, which is a prefab put there by the state as a result of ongoing legal challenges and new coalitions that have been established with the enlightened minds and forces in the Knesset that resulted with soon 4 prefab buildings are going to be established in Israel for Reform synagogues in Modi'in, as it was last week, in Kiryat Tivon next week, in Zichron Yaakov and in Sur Hadassah. So let's realize that no change will occur just because people will wake up one day and see the light. There needs to be struggle. And there needs to be a consistent struggle. And it has to be legal, it has to be political, and let me add to our listeners, you are part of the blame. Because to the extent that we are talking about a worldwide Jewish partnership to establish, strengthen, and build the state of Israel, it's been true with regards to the roads, it's been true with regards to higher education, health services, welfare services. Our partners from around the world have sat back quietly when their Judaism has been rejected, when the rabbis have been rejected, when their form of marriages have been prohibited in Israel, and to the extent that we are indeed partners in realizing the vision of the State of Israel. The time has come for a worldwide alliance in promoting those core values of the State of Israel.
Wow. You are guilty. You just heard it from Rabbi Regev. But despite that, we're still going to take some of your questions and try to let our panel members deal with them. Here's a question that came from Abraham in Baltimore. He says this: everyone in Israel, from the far left to the far right, seems to agree on the need to have a Jewish majority in Israel. Do you agree that a Jewish majority is needed? And if so, how to do that when non-Jews are allowed to be citizens? Well, Naomi, there's a poser.
Israel's a democratic state with a Jewish majority. To the best of my knowledge, the United States is a democratic state with a Christian majority.
What if the demographics change?
1 minute. The greatest threat to democracy and in Jewish history to Jews have been mono-ethnic states. Mono-ethnic states are a disaster to democratic norms. And by the way, one of the major sources of Israel's strength, to my mind, actually its most important source of strength in the past 60 years, has been its ability to embrace diversity, even in a raucous manner, and to maintain its democracy, even though it's flawed. And therefore, my answer to Avram from Baltimore is very clear. Every person in this country, Muslim, Christian, Jew, Druze, we have a bunch of Buddhists now as well, of Jewish origin. They are citizens of the State of Israel and enjoy full rights of citizenship. And if we diverge from that, we are actually sacrificing our basic Jewish values and our basic democratic values.
Gershon, let me ask you a related question, but slightly different. Israel doesn't have a written constitution, even though one of the interviewees said that the Torah or the Bible was our constitution. Israel does not have a written constitution. If it did, would that change the situation of religious rights in Israel? Would it guarantee more freedom for people?
I think that sometimes too much weight is put on a written constitution. What's going to be in that constitution? If the compromise necessary to reach a constitution, for instance, is enshrining the current situation of religion and state, we will fix things as they are rather than leaving room for progress. The Soviet Constitution was full of human rights. Bolivia has had somewhere over 100 constitutions. The American Constitution, lovely as it is not preventing the long-term imprisonment without trial of people from around the world in Guantanamo Bay. So putting all the weight on the written Constitution is, I think, a mistake. It is a way of evading the political and the legal and the public struggle that are necessary to change legislation, to empower the courts, and to work toward a situation of equality.
An ongoing battle. Okay. Now, you two are invited to continue sending your questions. We will have a little time for more as the evening goes on. Remember, on your website there's a button to click. Click it, type in your question, we'll get it and we'll pass it along. We're going to move on now to the next item on our agenda, and that's religious and political extremism. When we hear those terms, the first thing that normally pops into our minds is things like Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah, Hamas, and the like, all sorts of extremist, fundamentalist Islamic movements. But the truth is that you don't have to look beyond the borders of this country to find some evidence of religious extremism. You can find it among Arab Israelis who are giving growing support in recent years to the Islamic movement in this country, which some describe as extremist, and we'll hear what our panelists have to say about that. And you can also find it among Jewish Israelis. For anyone who needs concrete proof, consider the fact that it was an Israeli Jew who murdered Yitzhak Rabin, the Prime Minister of Israel, and he was the tip of a certain iceberg of Jewish undergrounds that have been discovered over time. So you have tension here. You have tension among Jews and you have tension between Jews and Arabs. What's it like to be an Israeli and be an Arab? What if you're not Jewish? Watch.
All the citizens here have rights, have rights, have freedom of religion, there's a lot of Arabs living here, there's Christians living here, none of them are without rights. None of them are.
There are 7 laws which God gave to Noah, okay, which are very quickly, I'll try to make it as short as possible. It's not to commit adultery, not to commit murder, not to steal, not to worship idols, not to curse God, not to eat the limb of a living animal. Basically, you have to kill an animal before you eat it, and to establish just systems of government. Any non-Jew which keeps those 7 laws, according to God, is okay. So the non-Jew living in Israel, as long as he keeps the 7 laws, he's allowed to live here. He's allowed to have a business and to conduct his life. He's not part of the state. I mean, he's like a resident alien, like an American, like a green card.
I'm from Palestinian origin, and I born in Israel, raised up in Israel, keep on living in Israel, but.